All right, we are back like we never left. Episode 8 of the Small Cap Review. And man, what a day today. We could kind of start to feel the momentum starting to build towards the middle and end of last week, like we talked about. And then today we kind of got that big payoff. So there's a ton of stuff to go over. So I will just go ahead and jump into the start of it. I'm going to start with a couple names that I traded personally, TCBP being the first of those. So that name should sound familiar. This is not the first, not even the second, but the third time we've talked about it recently. Um, Taking a look at the daily, what do we notice? Big upper wick, big upper wick, big upper wick, big upper wick. This is a name that has a history of the gap and spike. So you got to know the personality of the stock before you trade it, or at least get some idea whether you're just looking at the chart, whether you're using historical data, which is recommended as well, to see the tendencies of the stock. But getting into this, you know, you knew it had potential to spike, and look at the range it shows you off the bat. I mean, just on this one candle, 67% range. When we're looking at, I mean, this is a clear daily zone. This has to be drug out here. We get so many pivots all in here, this pivot here. Um, so when we get this open below the levels, I'm not interested until we see a move above, even though this is right on top of this daily gap. I'm looking for a move above, a base, and then going up towards this obvious pre-market high level, which perfectly lines up with this daily level, all three of these daily levels, um, in this clear area that it has a hard time getting through and has shown us that. So clues are all over the place on this one. So when we get this dip into the zone, I entered, what was my average? Something like it was good. It was something like 215, something like that. It was down here. It behaved exactly like I wanted it to. So when we got this nice move up, I mean, like we talk about, I mean, looking for kind of that zone to zone 30% move is what you could have expected out of this one, and you got pretty much most of that in one candle. And then we get this halt up. At this point, I had taken no profits, and I do get a little nervous on the resumption because price action can be crazy. You don't know if it's going to be an instant dump. So as soon as it resumed, I took 3/4 off the table right up here in this pre-market zone. And I held on to a quarter for too long. I ended up stopping out, you know, I think this is the candle that got me. I set it a little bit above my entry, just the kind of games we play with ourselves, where I was like, oh, I just want to make some profit on it. Ended up not necessarily being the wrong move in terms of the result because we did end up getting this fade into the zone, so would have been stopped out there anyway. But um, letting the thought of setting my stop somewhere related to my entry, where I didn't want to lose money or whatever is kind of silly. But I was looking for maybe a pop off of VWAP to retry or maybe try and test these higher zones since we have had multiple attempts at it. Didn't get it, but that's why I took a hefty amount of profits, like I said, 3/4 at my ultimate target zone. So kind of gave a little bit back on it that I didn't plan to, but still an awesome move. Like I said, it ended up being, over 30% on that name. So sick trade. And another thing, like we always talk about here, um, is the volume. I mean, let's take a look at what we're cooking volume-wise. In the pre-market, 4.35 million. If you just go forward to 938, we're already at 9.24. We've already doubled that. So, I mean, it falls right in line with our rule. We want 4 times that volume from pre-market in the first hour. Here we get it in the first 20 minutes. Um, so, I mean, just always be paying attention. Look at this. Hardly can see these volume candles, and out of the gate immediately, we got a ton of volume here. So, excuse me. So this was, like I said, a sick name. I'll go ahead and keep the train moving. We have a lot to go over. The other name I traded this morning, NUVO, and I should have listened to some of my own advice because I didn't, I captured a lot of the move, but not enough of it. I'll tell you that much. So, this daily chart is not pretty. There's no two ways around it. This thing is just pretty gross, pretty gross. So, what got me interested in the name was look at the volume on this day. It had 1 million shares traded on this day. And then right out of the gates, we're seeing candles that are, 200,000 here. So it would be pretty easy to chew through what we had given back. I say we, like I'm an investor. It would be pretty easy to chew through this yesterday's range given the amount of volume that we had. So I was really interested in that. Um, This was right after the halt for TCBP. So eyes are looking around. What else can we get interested in? And this was a name that stayed positive in regards to the EMAs the entire time. So what I saw, what made me interested out of the gates, we kind of get this dip, but then it gets absorbed and we start to move higher, and then we get this base off of VWAP. So um, I don't know exactly what my entry was. I think it was somewhere on this breakthrough VWAP. I didn't wait for this pullback. So yeah, it was somewhere in the high 280s, I believe, was the average. And my thought was, at the very least, let's get up here to this level from yesterday. That's almost 20% right there. And I got that level from just going to the hourly chart and looking at it right there. Shouldn't be white. Um, so yeah, that was a pretty simple, you know, simple thesis. I knew that this thing had serious range on it. I knew that it would take one, two, three candles for me to get the 20% that I am looking for out of the name. So we made this move up here, and I didn't sell any right here, and then we got this kind of dip. And once it got absorbed, I was like, okay, this could be a powerful move. And so we get this big candle up. I take the first of my profits up here, and then we get a halt on this one as well. So I had about half profit or half my shares left going into this halt. Um, and then this is where I got shaken out. I sat here and watched this whole candle get made. I was looking for this pre-market zone that it made to be respected. Again, draw that out, easy peasy. I was looking for this to be respected for a move higher. And then we got this tweezer top right here. And I was like, okay, this is name. If it goes back down here, I'm giving back like 30% off the top. Didn't want to do that, so pretty much as soon as this candle went red, or in this case blue, took the rest off. It hurts. It hurts, it's always a good practice. Don't be doing the math, calculating, how much money you could have made, blah, blah, blah. Um, you know, should have listened to some of my own lessons in terms of letting the EMAs be a guide, next candle to make a low type of stuff. But a lot of emotions get a little bit of the best of me. Still made out sick on the trade, you know what I mean? It still was like, I mean, just looking at that, I mean, I made almost 60% on that thing. I mean, it was crazy. But you do just keep getting this nice move higher and higher and higher. 825 from the lows of 240 is crazy. It is just nuts. So we see here this previous high a day starting to get respected and build off of. And like I said, the range is crazy. I mean, if you just entered there, I mean, you already got like 10% out of that thing. So this was a sick name. Ugly, ugly, ugly daily chart. Not one that I would typically look to trade. But given the context of yesterday being so low volume, and then it being a hot market, I thought it was a pretty good chance I could take my little 20% chunk, and then obviously that turned into much, much more. So, was a really awesome name to trade. The two best names of the day from were me. So, I hope you guys got a piece of those. Now, we'll switch gears a little bit, play on the short side, day two play. So,
I'll give you guys a little bit of sauce on this one in terms of price targets and what to look for these day two shorts. Now, let's start actually just looking at yesterday, or Friday rather. You get this really fast move up and this consolidation that creates some pretty clear levels. You can draw them out as you'd like. Have this other one up here in this 980s. I was late to the party, didn't have it drawn out. But that ended up being the best level to base it off of, short off of this morning. And so if you missed it there, you can get this retest at this level again, just this pivot from yesterday. So going into open, won't you, we'll go into the open right here. My thought is if we can get a move up into this, you know, $9, just below $9 range, um, that would be ideal. We can either risk, depending on when you get in and how patient you are, you're either risking at worst $10, whole dollar, but this thing had a lot of range, and I'll talk about that in a second. You can risk this next pivot up, this 923, or if you're patient and see the rejection under 9, risk the whole dollar right above 9. So what are we looking for to say that this is a trade that could give us a really strong fade? Here it is, folks, the 15-minute 200 EMA. If you got room to this is ultimate target for the day two short for me. So saying we had a lot of room to this, and then the other thing, the second thing that I'm looking at is room to the 8 EMA on the daily, and that's this green one for me. So tons of room to both of them, clear pivots, game was on. This was a name I was definitely interested in. So we actually get the exact move that we'd like to see. Here's kind of that tweezer top that shook me out of the previous name. You get that action here, right below $9. See this, get in, risk these highs. If it's going to behave like you want it to, it's not going to be doing this. Fake breakout, come up, reclaim type of thing at that point. It might just go up to the highs, but you get this awesome rejection into an immediate halt down. And I mean, it doesn't get easier than that. Grind the EMAs all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. And we haven't yet touched this 15-minute 200. I would say we probably are, but already great range. So, like I said, I mean, even if you took this with the widest risk possible, in the middle of this zone, risking $10, $1.20. Let's see what you would have got out of it. How many R's we'd get out of this thing. It's hard to even get this thing on the screen. So we're risking $1.20, but you're still making $3.50. So again, I wouldn't have played it like that with the risk reward. Maybe, multiple entries here, maybe two swings of the bat. So the first one sized for a risk of 10. But once we see this rejection and the sell-off, doing another entry, risking all the shares at the high of day to give you a fuller size there. So really awesome name on the short side. This day two setup, just draw your pivots. I mean, let's take a look at what it will look like on the 10-minute chart. This 10-minute chart with the pre-market turned off, it was quite a bit above these EMAs, so at the very least, feel confident in getting a move back down to it, but excuse me, like I said, the targets are the 15-minute 200 and then the 8 EMA on the daily. So sick name on that. So let's go to the leading gapper for the day, XBP. Now, even though the market is hot, momentum is feeling itself, that does not mean that, the numbers completely change in what we're looking for on day one gappers. This thing was up about 104%. There was no levels even close to this thing where it opened up right here in the middle of no man's land. It had already gone up and rejected these levels once, twice, 3 times if you count that all as one. So this is a name not interested in at all. The only move that I was kind of curious in was this move here off of these pre-market levels, and this isn't even a real one, it's just this one candle. Trying to get something off here. that lines up with this daily pivot right here. So this was the only thing that was interesting, and you did get a nice move off of it. But at this point, after this first candle, where there were so many other names, TCBP, NUVO, EBS, SGE, everything was looking good out of the open. So you do, I mean, at that point, I'm like, I'm not interested in this thing, trying to get a bounce off of this and like fight through all this pre-market crap. You do get nice little 13% move coming off of it, but this one candle took it completely off the radar, lined up with the fact that it is a day one gap, gapping up over 100%. So, and a ugly daily setup. So, this was one, I mean, this I feel like you had to be foolish to be looking at this thing on the long side after open, especially with so many other things going. So, not a ton more on there, just don't be a chaser is really all I got for you on that. Um, let's go I'm sorry, EBS. Now this is one that, I've had this problem a couple times in the last few trading sessions where I feel like a trade is really clear, but the range for me is a little limited. So I sit and watch the move happen. So this name was easy to borrow. Oh, NUVO was easy to borrow also with 72% institutional ownership. So should have mentioned that there, but easy to borrow names, and you could see it in the price action. I mean, just go back quickly to NUVO. I mean, with shorts not having the ability to slam it at the lows, you having to put in a limit order for it. You can just see that in this grinding price action. This is kind of classic, easy to borrow action where even where you think that you get these tops, shorts just don't have the ability to continue to hammer it lower. So um, very important. Make sure that you're checking the easy to borrow stocks in the morning as well. Back to EBS, easy to borrow, like I said. Um, this was one where it respected these levels from yesterday very well. Again, clear zone kind of at the end of the day here that was respected here in pre-market. So I had that drawn out. Of course, had the high of day drawn out, which is also in line with this daily pivot here. So clear levels, kind of closest to entry that we can look to play off of. So right away, I mean, this was about 10 seconds into the day. We hit it, or I didn't hit it, but it goes up above this high a day and then dips down below it. So here, what I was looking for, again, at this point in my mind, I was not going to trade this thing just because I was like, okay, pre-market highs up into the zone, 10%. I don't think it's going to go and bust through them. So limited range on it, but I knew it was easy to borrow, and it was on top of the previous high a day on a name that had shown some pretty good strength. That kind of gives, I mean, yeah, on a name with some pretty good strength. So the play that I was looking for just to kind of play out in my mind was a dip off of the previous high a day after it had broken through. And we get that to the penny. This is actually textbook, perfect, easy traders. I mean, this is if you're not looking to play a fast name like TCBP, like NUVO, with more volatility, this was an awesome trade to take because it's the easy way up right here. I mean, you do kind of get this flat top type of look, but again, EMAs are holding, and you know that stocks are attracted to zones. We got this clear zone above, and we got that from 2 sessions ago. Scroll over. All this, we obviously get the high day, these pivots right up here, this move up above it, some more pivots here, and rejection. So that's where I got that zone from, and that's what I was looking for it to retest. And yeah, we got a super clean move here. Ended up giving you, 11, 12% on this thing. Which is good if that's what you're looking for, but I'm just looking for a little bit more explosive moves. But still good to have a thesis in your head, watch it play out, watch it preview right, just to build confidence. And, of course, we'll be taking some screenshots of this later, put it in the playbook, and kind of just build off that knowledge. So even if you don't trade it, there is a lot to be learned and gained. So another name here, MI, that was interesting, but I could not pull the trigger on this thing. The volume was just too low. it just did not have enough volume on this. The day one setup was nice. It held levels really nicely. And another thing that made it interesting to me and had it on a thumbnail chart for me was the fact that even though the stock is priced, $6, it had a float of like 700,000 shares or something. I mean, it had a tiny, tiny float. So when you have a higher price stock with a tiny float, um, those moves can really add up, whole dollar moves getting put in. So, like I said, this first day was interesting. Again, super low volume. I mean, decent volume compared to the rest of the days here. But I mean, at the end of the day, it had 2 million, 2 million shares traded. So, um, in my mind, kind of going into the session, I was like, okay, if it starts to build real volume, we can get interested in it. But I mean, it didn't happen at all. There's no real volume that came in. We filled this daily gap. I love the daily gap. This one right here. Fill this immediately. And then came all the way back down to these levels where it kind of opened up based on top of the daily gap. And now we see it, pretty much doubled in price today. So, Um, for me, like I said, I can't really trade it when it's that little volume. It's just too sketchy for me. But again, good to see your thesis playing out, being proved correct. Um, and this was, again, a clean trade given how little volume that it did have. So um, I'm kind of rushing through these just because I don't want to make a 45-minute long video. So I only got one more to go over here. SGE. Man. And like I said, I mean, when we were looking at XBP, where it had that super negative first candle, um, when I'm looking, I call it looking around the league. When I see this as a first candle here, I'm like, okay, what name would you rather trade? I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be trying to trade these things right at a pivot, but looking for a low volume pullback to levels and a move higher. So no reason to have focus in names that show weakness immediately. A weak open is okay, but a giant selling candle off the open when other things in the market are acting strong is not what you need. So um, this daily chart was pretty nasty too. I mean, completely devoid of like any volume on this thing. And when that's the case, you just get pivots, 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 pivots all over the place. I could have drawn a million of these things, even a little gap there. So it's a little trickier in that regard to find excuse me, I don't know. I've been burping like every time I've made these videos. I don't even know what it is, but it makes it a little bit more difficult to find the levels that matter. So these are just the ones I had drawn going into the day. They ended up behaving okay. The clearest ones are the best ones, like this 227 level, clear as day. This one down here, this 159, and this I can't even see what it is, 164. Super obvious, so I just threw those down. Um, so when it hits scanners and I see it, popping up here at open and rejecting these levels, um, I kept it on radar because I know from here to here, it's a 20% move. Yeah, I'm addicted to 20% moves. So, I saw this pulling back volume, this declining volume, which is exactly what you want to see. Then the tides change, increasing volume for this move up. And that, you know, is is textbook. This is perfect. We know that strong stocks make the low of day, or at least not necessarily all day, but the low is going to come in the first 5 minutes of the day. So when you get this move down here, this is great risk reward. I mean, take these things in between these levels, you're risking, you know, we'll call it 10 cents, 5%, hoping to get up into this pre-market zone. That's 40%. I mean, 8 to 1 risk reward. I mean, sign me up. That's easy peasy. And then you get this haul, and this is awesome to see. You know that this pre-market level is going to be a tough level for it to get to. It's paired with this daily level that's been respected. And it says, you know what? Instead of trying to fight through this thing, I'm just skipping it. I'm done. So it halts up over this thing, retests it down, and then absolutely rips off of it all the way until this next level. Um, it's so sick to see. I mean, that's like
the best setup regarding pre-market high. Is where you get a skip through it, a retest of it, and then just a fucking rocket. Excuse my language. And just a rocket above it. So then we get some ping pong. This level, like I said, clear on the chart, mixed with the whole dollar, easy to play. This thing also was another high IO name, 78%, 2 million float. So, I mean, this thing had juice and reason to go. So, I'll go ahead and leave it there. Like I said, I could have made a 20-minute video on like half of these names, and the video could have been 2 hours long, but no one wants that. I don't want that. You don't want that. So, um, thank you for watching. I hope, I mean, today's one of those days where you can feel that momentum, put your foot on the gas. It is time to, you know, push a little bit. When the market's hot, you got to take advantage because before long we will go back into that colder cycle of the market where things favor shorts. And you got to just take these things day by day. Um, so yeah, lock in on the long side, be careful on the short side. And if you guys have any questions, any tickers, any themes, anything you have questions on, um, leave it in the comments. If you will, leave your boy a subscription. Shout out to my two boys so far, or girls. Appreciate you, and we will catch you guys tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.